Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Ryan, and I'm pleased to have my good friend and pal and colleague, sports betting peer, the Iceman, Jesse Schule. I didn't know beaches existed like that in Thailand, Jesse. It's quite a place there. Obviously, the conditions are much better than you have been enduring, and I am glad to see that you're a lot healthier than you were the other day. That was pretty scary stuff, I imagine.
Yeah, no, the weather's been pretty terrible here where I'm at in Chiang Mai in the mountains. Some poor air quality, but we had some rain today, which is good news. But they're calling for 50 degrees tomorrow, and I don't even know. I think that's 122 for those of you who don't know the metric system.
Wow. That's not cold.
No, yeah, it could kill you if you don't have air conditioning.
Wow. Makes you want to come back to the Pacific Northwest, I
Oh
assume.
no, it doesn't.
No. Well,
No.
you'll have to come back and at least visit a little bit, or I'm going to have to be bold enough to get on a jet and fly that long. But one or the other, this is a great way to catch up and give our viewers and listeners some good sports betting advice. I just got off the ESPN Syracuse show, which I normally do on Fridays at 1:30, but I get bumped once in a while. Some guy named Jim Boeheim was the reason I got bumped the last time. You know, I guess I'm pretty laid back because it's not annoying. I did have to go on Basketball Reference and see who this Jim Boeheim guy was, and I misspelled it, and But of course, for those that don't know, if you're like maybe 20, 25 years old, you may not know about Jim Boeheim, but he's been the head coach of Syracuse up to this year since 1976. So he'll still be part of the program and quite the legend and just a great gentleman on and off the court, a real mentor of young men. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little baseball, Jesse, get things started here. Scoring is up. And I am a purist. I hated the shift. I absolutely abhorred the shift. I'm glad to see that it's gone. What I'm also glad to see is that these teams are now taking the pitch and going with it. Guys like Stott, who leads off for the Phillies, batting whatever it is, 380. A lot of the Philly batters are batting in that fashion. The traditional Rod Carew style of baseball. Ken Griffey Jr. batted the same way. Even A-Rod was a Charlie Lau swing. And Charlie Lau was a great student of the swing. He researched every single player, Jesse, going back as far as he could get video clip, and basically came up with commonalities among these great hitters. What do they do that's so great that I can create a method of hitting? So the release of the bat that A-Rod and Bonds and that generation, that was all
Tony
Charlie Lau
Gwynn.
Jr.
If I was going to copy somebody, I might look at Tony Gwynn.
Oh yeah. When I was coaching baseball a lot, especially with the teams that were 15U and younger, a lot of those kids don't want to do the practice drills off the tee. But I would always remind them that Tony Gwynn, before every game, would take at least 200 swings off a tee underneath the stands before he would even think about coming out to the batting cage. So to your point, he is a great example of what you need to do to be a great hitter at any level. But I am glad to see that these guys are starting to hit the opposite field. They're not trying to pull the daylights out of the ball. They're not trying to hit home runs as much, although the home run rates are very similar to last year. Now, last year, the caveat here is that that was the lowest scoring April in the last 20 seasons. So we're needless to say, we're way up from that. We're going to end up fourth or fifth highest in April, I think, over the last 20 years. But my question to you, Jesse, and for the viewers, if you want to chime in the chat here, please do. My question, and I've been researching this for the last week and a half, the totals right now, the average total in our games is average ranks eighth in the last 20 years. We're scoring at the fourth highest clip in the last 20 years. So it tells me that maybe the markets haven't caught up. And I'm wondering if you think that there's going to be over opportunities for both games and teams like the Phillies, for example. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm certainly scared to death to bet unders these days. Normally in April, especially, that would be a go-to move for me. Opening day, I would isolate three or four under, a couple aces going for a couple various teams. The under 6.5s and 7s when you got like a Scherzer versus Kershaw or something like that, right?
Yep.
Not this year. I knew with the rule changes, I wanted to sit on the fence, watch and learn, and I haven't got it figured out yet enough to the point where I still don't feel comfortable picking unders. Overs, different story. I'll isolate a few pitchers that are struggling in certain ballparks and weather conditions that trend toward the over, and I've managed to squeeze out a few overs and capitalize on some of that trend by betting overs, but I haven't had the balls to play unders yet.
Yeah, and no pun intended, but baseball does have a lot of balls. No question. But anyway, seriously, I had to say that. It's almost embarrassing. But nevertheless, I think you're right with this because April is generally the lowest scoring month. It's when the temperatures are much colder. Teams are trying to find their way. Pitchers are dominating because they can. We warm up in May here in the Northeast, especially, and the ball starts to really travel. If I remember right, 10 degrees in temperature. So if we go from an average game time temp of 50 degrees to 60 degrees, translates to 12 feet on a line drive or a potential home run. So it is measurable by those guys at MIT. Love those guys at MIT. And I do think that there's going to be opportunities. I think the Phillies are on the verge of that offense. They're just getting in their own way. They're batting 280 something as a team. Four guys over 300. Stott, like I said, is batting around 380, and they don't even have Harper in the lineup yet. So I'm not concerned that they are 7-11 or 8-11 or whatever. They're playing Colorado now for the next 4 days. That they should win 3 out of 4 there, and eventually they'll get to 500. And the same thing with Houston. Houston is 500. The Dodgers are 500. I mean, do you think any of those three teams, Jesse, is going to end up the season or even at the All-Star break at 500 or lower?
No, but I think the Dodgers probably have more questions to answer than Houston or Philly, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be concerned if I was a Dodgers fan.
yeah, I think you're right there. Yep. Let's check out some hoops. I think I have this game right here on a slide. So the Sixers. Speaking of Phillies, now we're not being homers here. It just happens to be that Philly has a lot of good teams in all the major sports except for the NHL. Jalen Hurts signs the record deal for for an NFL player. Period. Now I'm sure that's not going to last very long, but still, it is so comical to me, Jesse. And I do the Twitter sentiment with my Python codes as a handicapping tool. And Philly and New York are the most volatile fan bases there are. And I don't mean like fighting and stuff like that volatile. It's less than 2 years ago that the fan base was basically crucifying Jalen Hurts that he was not the franchise quarterback. He was not, didn't have the arm, couldn't throw the long ball, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And now he's been given the keys to the city as the greatest quarterback in the NFL. So, with that said, now that the pulse of the city has gone so far extreme, we're going to have to keep an eye on that because maybe this upcoming year might not be as good as the fan base thinks it might be. But that's a topic for another time. Back to the Sixers. Sorry, I digressed. We're going to bet on favorites of 4 more points. Favorite is playing a game in the same series. Our favorite won the previous game in the series. And the total is not more than 220 points. It all adds up to the Sixers. And in game 2, Jesse, it got to, I guess the Sixers were down 10 or 11 near the half. And I just happened to look at BetMGM on the phone. Lo and behold, there it is, minus 115 on the money line. Sixers were a 10-point favorite. And I thought, well, this is a good opportunity. It turned out to be a good opportunity. And I think the same thing can be said in this one because if you look at the record, 44-8 straight up are the Sixers. So they can be trailing at halftime. In fact, I hope they are again and get out to a slow start. That'd be fine with me because I know I'm going to get a much better line than minus 4.5. And I might be able to even get the Sixers at a dog because this game is being played in Brooklyn. So do you have anything that can help me in the first half think that it's wise for me maybe to bet 50% pre-flop on the Sixers and then maybe load up the other 50% late in the second quarter or at halftime?
Absolutely, John. I can tell you that dating back to 2007, teams that are down 0-2 in a series are 79, 47, and 9 against the spread in the first half of game 3. And it's pretty easy to see why. You have a team that's on the ropes. They're on the verge of being swept. They need to respond. So they get their first home game in the series. They need to come out strong. And you got a team like Philly, and especially in this case, I don't think Philly respects Brooklyn enough that Philly is concerned about starting well. I think Philly understands that as long as they're within 10 or 15 points, they've got Brooklyn right where they want them. And Brooklyn can come out and win the first quarter, win the first half. It's meaningless. Philly will turn it on when they want to turn it on and win the game. And therefore, Brooklyn playing at home in game 3 as an underdog for the first half and the first quarter, I think is a very strong player.
I love it. I'm going to tell you on that. I like that a lot. I may just do 25% of my normal bet size for that first half bet. And then, because that's basically doing opposite of what, not the opposite, it's doing the same thing in a different way. I can go 50% Sixers, or I could go 25% on the Nets first half. And that essentially is the same thing.
Well, did you hear Joel Embiid's comments after game 2?
I've heard a lot of comments. So which one are you referencing?
Well, he was. What struck me is he wasn't talking about Brooklyn. He was talking about Nick Nurse and this and that. He doesn't give a rat's behind about Brooklyn. He doesn't respect Brooklyn. Philly doesn't respect Brooklyn. Joel Embiid's out there talking about Nick Nurse, who isn't in the playoffs. I just can't see Philly coming out here worried about anything Brooklyn's going to do. I think they're quite content to let Brooklyn get off to a good start and then say, sorry, kids, we're taking our ball and we're going home.
Yeah, I think that's one of the traits the Sixers have going for them is they know that Brooklyn doesn't have the firepower to keep it up for 48 minutes, especially when the Sixers hit the switch and start running. And I do like the Sixers as the Eastern Conference champ. I think at 7-1 to win the finals, I think is pretty darn cheap. And there's a new king, I think, emerging in the West. No pun intended, but the Sacramento Kings are young and they have no fear. They play with no fear. And I think it's a mistake, and I could be dead wrong in this game tonight, but I think it's a mistake to assume that the Golden State Warriors, without Draymond Green, are going to simply, rule the night, dominate the court, dominate the boards, and are going to win this game by double digits. They're -6. I don't. I would much rather bet the Kings if it got up to 9.5 in game in the first half. I would much rather take the Kings. How about you?
Well, I'll go back to that stat again. Teams down 0-2.
Right?
You play them for the first half. I honestly think, again, the Kings are a little bit of a different story than Philly. I think the Kings do respect the Warriors. But, I mean, the Warriors got off to great starts in both the first two games of the series. Game 1 in Sacramento was close. And we know the Warriors are just better at home. They were 33-8 at home this year. They've won 11 of their last 12 home games in the playoffs. I expect Golden State to come out hot. I expect them to build a big lead early. Whether or not they can hold it and cover the spread, I'm a little bit less confident in that. But as far as first half, I like Golden State.
And that makes total sense to me again. So it's a game where I can sit back, and I would recommend this strategy. Sit back. If you like the Kings, don't bet them pre-flop. Wait and see if the Zig Zag applies here. And you would expect the Warriors to come out bringing the load and trying to send a message to a young team like the Kings. That makes total sense to me. And you know what, Jesse? What people have
and the crowd and the officials, and there's so much momentum and so many factors that are sort of pointing in that direction, where the home team down 0-2 for game 3. I mean, that's what the league wants. That's what the fans want. It's in everybody's best interest for the Warriors to respond, probably win game 3 as well, but at least start off the game quite well.
I agree. With the time we have left, let's take a look at hockey, because I know you have some hockey stuff. I'll start us off here. And this is a similar situation that we're seeing in basketball. And, I like to say I bet numbers, and that's basically what I do. The situations are based on numbers and analytics and matchups. And I look at the fundamentals, but when I look at the fundamentals, that's when it's a different sport. But it's the same kind of methodology. So here we have Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay upset Toronto in the first game. Now, the world is on Toronto, and probably rightfully so. I mean, who am I to say that Tampa Bay is going to go up 0-2? But I will say that they have an outstanding goalie. They have experience. They've been here before, and they know how to go up 2-0 on the road. So play on road dogs, not more than 160. Dogs coming off a road game which both teams scored 3 or more goals. Match up of winning record teams. Pretty simple stuff. Look at the record. 134, 135, averaging 133 wager, 15% ROI the last 25 seasons. And better yet, Jesse, if it's a playoff game, look at that. 29-20 on a dog. You're actually got a winning percentage, and you're getting paid $1.31 for every unit that you put out there, and that's a 46% ROI. And even the S&P 500 can't give you that. I like Tampa Bay tonight in this game, and I will mention this very quickly. I call these systems blackjack systems, and drawing on the casino game. So 134 and 135 is 269 games. So imagine going to the casino, Jesse, sitting down at the blackjack table, and I know you and I would never sit there as a degenerate and do 269 hands of blackjack. But say that, we did. We, at the normal casino, is going to pay you 1-to-1 for your wins. This system pays you $1.33. So if you're betting $100 a hand, you're getting paid back $133 a hand. And if any casino in the world would do that, I think I'd probably, quit my day job, and I would be at the casino every day, doing whatever the card counting that they would allow me to do, and I would take advantage of this. But you can't do that. That's never going to happen. But this system has done it for 25 seasons. So that is my take on that. What games do you have?
Well, let's first get my opinion on that game. The Maple Leafs, they have somewhat of a curse that they're dealing with. I mean, their fan base has been punished. I believe they were in a game 7 against the Boston Bruins, leading the game 4-1 with 5 minutes to play, and somehow they ended up losing a game 7 with a 3-goal lead in the final 5 minutes. This is a franchise that is cursed, and I can't believe that the bookmakers can still find that many people that want to bet on them as a favorite after they just got shellacked in game 1 at home. But my play here would be on Tampa Bay on the puck line. There's so many games that are decided in overtime in the NHL playoffs. I think this has probably got the potential to be a close game. Could go either way. The Leafs are definitely overpriced, but I think the high percentage play here is on Tampa on the puck line.
I actually like that play even better than my own, Jesse. That's pretty smart stuff. Because the other night, I forget what night it was, be easy to find out. Every single game that was played was won by 1 goal. So it gives you that protection of Tampa Bay losing by 1, but you still win the bet. So that's a great point.
I mean, there's a reason why it's expensive to bet on puck line underdogs. It's because so many games are decided by 1 goal.
Yep.
And in the playoffs in particular, I mean, it's ridiculous. So anytime you get the opportunity to back an underdog on the puck line, and it a reasonable price is anything under 2-1, really.
Any other series that you want to talk about? I know Florida and Boston is a very intriguing one with that very young, unseasoned goaltender for the Panthers. But any thoughts on that series going forward? I mean, is Boston in trouble not winning this one and advancing?
I think Boston, obviously they broke the record for the most wins and most points in a season. But a lot of people are saying, they're vulnerable to be upset. And I think that's true. But I don't think that Florida is the right team to do it. I was kind of surprised that Florida came out and won game 2. And there has been some rumors that there's a flu bug going around the dressing room in Boston. I feel comfortable backing Boston moving forward in game 3 and probably game 4. You get a better price because they'll be on the road. The goaltending is a huge advantage for Boston. The goaltender for Florida, who he didn't play great in game 1. I mean, this is a guy who's been a career backup, basically a minor leaguer, and all of a sudden he's freshly promoted. He doesn't even have 20 games under his belt in the NHL, like in the regular season. I think he played a career high 14 games this year. So, it's tough to go to the bank on Florida with that guy in between the pipes. So, I still think Boston will take this series, probably in a gentleman's sweep. I think Boston will probably take the next 3 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. They're just too good.
I do like the Seattle Kraken tonight, though. I actually took a loss, my only loss of the playoffs so far. I had Colorado in game 1 at home. Of course, Denver is a tough place to play at altitude. Colorado, the defending champs. But Seattle's got the better goaltender in the series, and somehow that slipped my mind in game 1. But heading into game 2, Colorado is a bigger favorite in game 2 than they were in game 1. Seattle won the season series. 5 of the last 6 head-to-head meetings between these teams have been decided by 1 goal. With the great goaltending that Seattle's been getting, I expect another close game here. So I like Seattle on the puck line, and they're rather affordable at plus 1.5, minus 145, which is very cheap for a puck line underdog in the playoffs.
It certainly is. Yeah, I like that bet too. So to recap what we talked about, I know we like the strategy of kind of holding the powder dry regarding my bet on the Sixers because you have a strong play on the Nets that makes complete sense to me in the first half. So I think, betting that game is if you like the Nets, then take Jesse's advice for sure and bet the first half. But then, my bet then for full game comes into play that if the Sixers are, let's say the Sixers are tied or trailing at the half, that's an opportunity to bet the Sixers to win the game. And if they are tied or losing, they're going to be very, very cheap on the money line. and could possibly be plus 110, plus 120 even. And I do think that that's a tremendous opportunity because they have shown they can turn it on against a weak team. The Nets are a weak team. They don't have the scoring power to stay up with them. But for the first half, Jesse, you're right. They can come out of the gate and say, you know what, we're tired of the Sixers walking all over us, and we're going to take this game. And I think that's how it's going to play out. And then in baseball, we talked a lot of different games there. We talked about the Phillies going forward with team totals. I have the Marlins lined up for tomorrow against the Guardians. That's a Friday game. It's a 3-game series. So I like the Marlins on the road in that game. And that's a very contrarian play. Jesse, you want to summarize the hockey for us?
Oh, I got the Seattle Kraken on the puck line, the Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line. And I think that was about it.
Yep.
And the Boston Bruins just to complete the gentleman's sweep, I guess.
Yeah. And that might be, how about the futures? Do you think that prices come down, or do you think it's probably still too expensive to bet?
Yeah, no, there's not going to be any value on Boston futures. I don't think. Unless they're losing a series 3-1, I don't think the price is coming down on Boston.
And they still might be pick 'em.
Yeah, I think teams can beat Boston for sure. I just don't think Florida is that team. Even though they looked like that team in the last game, it's going to take one more game like that to convince me.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of our shows. We are planning, folks, to resume the Manny's Irish Pub. Looking forward to getting some of the old character, not old in age, and if they're watching this, then they're going to be mad at me, but our veteran friends, from Wager Talk and Sports Memo and other places to join us. And this is the kickstart to get it rolling again. So we appreciate everybody that has watched this show. And Jesse, before we sign off here, do you have anything big going on over at Predictive Playbook that you want to promote for us?
I do. I have a puck line play on the ice, and I've got a couple of NBA plays going for tonight. And I'm off to a good start with both NBA and NHL playoffs, and hitting close to 70% with Major League Baseball this season. So picking up right where I left off last year. It's awful hot in the summertime where I'm from. Yeah,
it's going to be 122 degrees if you didn't watch the beginning of this show, where Jesse lives. And if you can determine where Jesse lives without, cheating, that would be pretty impressive. But anyway, we'll end today, Thursday, April 20th, 2023. We're looking to come back around noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, maybe a shade early, but stay tuned on our timelines because we'll make sure that we post what time we will be on the air. And we look forward to seeing you again the next time. So, Jesse, how do we always end these shows?
Well, the most important thing for novice bettors to remember, John, is bet with your head and not over it. And may all the wins be yours.
I can't agree more.